All right, so I want to go over a couple more of these graph-looking types. So most of the ones that you're gonna have are gonna have a grid like this. They may even be numbered, but they might not. So if they're not numbered, you're just gonna go by how many spaces there are, marks. So for instance, for like that dot, if I asked you what f of 3 was, you'd go 1, 2, 3 over, and f of 3, so 3 is your input, and this would be your output, this y value. You'd say negative 1. If I asked you for f of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it would be 0 because it's 0 up and down. Yeah. I'll give you some problems here. We'll go through them. All right, so first off is the domain. And domain are your list of inputs or your x values. So it's each of these x values that actually has something, a point recorded on it. So -5, -3 has one. See, this one would be 0 because it's 0 to the left and right. +1 has one, +2 has one, and +3 has one. So 1, 2, and 3. And then your range are going to be your list of y values that are actually recorded. So the lowest one is right here, and that y value is -2. And then there's one here at -1. There is one at 0. Okay, that one has a y value of 0. There's one at +1. There's one at +2. There's actually two at +2 there. And there is one at +3 as well. Okay. So this question is asking us to plug in 2 for x, and it wants to know the output. So if we go over to 2 on the inputs or the x values, we look for the dot that's on that spot, which is right here. So that would be -2. So they plug in 2 for x, and they're wanting to know the y value, the output. If you look at where -3 is on x, -3 on x is right here, and the y value at that spot is 0. Okay, this one's asking f of what will give you 2. So for what input will you get a y value of 2? So there's two of them right there and right there. So f of 3 could be your answer because that gives back a y value of 2 or an output of 2. Or you could have put -5. So it's 3 or -5. All right, because they both give an output of +2. All right, this one says you're plugging in 0 for x. I know this is the one that confuses people most. So f of 0 is going to be, you're plugging in 0 for x, so right here dead center, and you follow that down, and it would be at -1. Okay. Now this thing here actually is not a function. I never answered that, did I? My bad. It is not a function, and the reason why is because when you plug in 1, all right, if you look at the input of 1, you've got an output of 1, and you also have an output of 3. All right, that right there causes it to not be a function. All right, let's look at this graph here. Let's see. So the domain is asking for the list of inputs. Another way to think of the domain is how far left and how far right it goes. All right, so the furthest to the left that this function goes is right here. Now these are the inputs or the x values. So the furthest to the left it gets is 0 on x. All right, that's the furthest to the left that it goes. All right, and it will be a bracket at 0. And the furthest to the right it goes, we see here it goes up and to the right forever. So the domain is going to be 0 to infinity. All right, furthest to the left it goes is 0, and the furthest to the right it goes, since it goes up and to the right forever, would be infinity. Your range. So these are your outputs or your y values. So this is going to be kind of how far down and how far up. That's what we're looking for. Well, the lowest, the furthest that it gets down is right here, and that's at -2. And then it goes up and to the right forever. So -2 to infinity. All right, so this squiggly looking one. F of -5. So if you plug in -5 for x, they're wanting to know the output, which is right there. So it would be -2. F of what will equal 4. So they're asking, what do you have to plug in so that you get an output of 4? Well, that's got to be 6. All right, 6 is the input that will give you back a 4. Domain is how far left and right it goes. In this case, it's going to be -5, 6. So those are the only x values that this thing takes on. The furthest to the left it goes is -5, and the furthest to the right it goes is 6. All right. Range, how far up and down? Well, the lowest it goes is right here, and that is a -2. And the highest it goes is right there, which is +4. All right, this one is not a function. All right, the reason we know it's not a function, it's if you look at where x equals 0, you get this y value back, which is like maybe 1, and you also get this y value up here, which is a little bit below 6. But we'll talk about whether or not something is a function on graphs, I think in the next video. F of 4 is going to give you 0. So if you plug in 4 for x, it's asking what's that y value there, and that is 0. Our domain, how far left and right? Well, the furthest to the left that this thing gets is right here, which is going to be that x value, -6. And the furthest to the right it gets is right here, which is going to be that x value, so 4. The range, the lowest it goes is this spot right here, and it's going to be that y value there, so 0. And the highest it gets is 6, because that's the highest it gets right there, and it's that y value. So the range would be 0 to 6, and the domain, -6 to 4.